Someone is about to step forward and admit something that will validate what you've quietly known for a long time. Before you hear it, pause. Take a slow breath. What's coming isn't random. It's not a coincidence, and it's definitely not something you invented in your head. You didn't imagine the signs. You weren't overthinking. You weren't creating stories out of nothing. Deep down, your intuition has been speaking to you in subtle ways, even when you tried to silence it, even when you told yourself to be logical. Very soon, someone will put into words what your heart has already understood. You felt it before you could explain it, before there was proof, before there was any direct conversation. There was just this quiet inner knowing, a pull you couldn't fully describe, a strange blend of warmth and heaviness in your chest whenever you thought about them. There were times their name crossed your mind without reason, moments when the silence between you felt louder than any conversation. You tried to brush it off. You distracted yourself. You convinced yourself you were reading too much into small gestures. But intuition doesn't force itself on you. It doesn't scream. It waits, calmly, patiently. It allows the truth to unfold in its own time, and your intuition has been waiting for this moment. The reason is simple. This person has been holding something back. What they are about to confess didn't appear overnight. It has been building slowly inside them, sometimes quietly, sometimes painfully. Their silence was never about indifference. It was about fear. Fear of saying the wrong thing, fear of rejection, fear of changing the dynamic between you, fear of admitting emotions that felt bigger than they knew how to handle. They noticed more than you think. They paid attention to your mood shifts, your energy changes, your subtle expressions. They remembered details you assumed went unseen. There were many moments when they almost spoke up, moments when the words were right there, but hesitation pulled them back. Still, fear can only hold the truth for so long. You sensed their internal conflict even when nothing was said directly. That's why the connection never felt fully closed. It felt unfinished, like a sentence that stopped before the final word. No matter how much time passed or how much space existed between you, something remained. You noticed the way they would pull away emotionally and then suddenly come closer again. The indirect ways they tried to stay present in your life, the tension when you were near each other, the unspoken meaning behind simple interactions. Even silence felt loaded with emotion. You thought maybe it was confusion, maybe mixed signals. But it wasn't confusion. It was truth being restrained. And truth that is suppressed doesn't disappear. It finds a way to surface. So why now? Because timing matters more than we realize. Something has shifted, maybe within you, maybe within them, maybe within both of you. Perhaps you began focusing on yourself more. Maybe you stopped chasing clarity. Maybe you chose peace instead of constantly analyzing. When you stopped trying to force answers, you created space. And that space allowed honesty to move toward you naturally. When you released control, things began aligning on their own. This confession isn't about power anymore. It isn't about who cares more or who waited longer. It's about honesty finally becoming stronger than fear. And when it happens, don't expect a dramatic scene like in a movie. It probably won't arrive with grand gestures or intense declarations. It may come during an ordinary moment, a quiet conversation, a simple exchange. They might say something like, "There's something I've been meaning to tell you," or, "I don't know why I'm saying this now, but I've felt this way for a long time." Maybe even, "You were right. You always were." The words may sound simple, but the emotional weight behind them will be undeniable. And when you hear them, you won't feel shocked. You won't feel confused. Instead, something inside you will become still, calm, certain, because you already knew. This won't feel like new information. It will feel like confirmation, like a truth finally stepping into the light after living in the shadows. You never imagined it. You never created it in your head. You simply trusted a quiet voice inside you that understood before logic ever could. And now that voice is about to be validated. When it finally happens, you won't sit there thinking you never expected it. You won't feel shocked or caught off guard. Instead, a quiet thought will move through you. I already knew. That calm recognition in your chest is your intuition being confirmed. Life isn't trying to throw something unexpected at you. It's simply validating what your inner voice has been saying all along. What this person is about to admit goes beyond simple romantic feelings. They are acknowledging that they tried to suppress what they felt. They attempted to convince themselves they could move on. They pretended distance would make everything disappear, but it didn't. Space didn't erase the emotions. Silence didn't make them weaker. They are admitting that acting indifferent was draining, that holding everything inside became heavier than speaking the truth, that staying quiet required more effort than being honest. This confession is not just freeing for them, it's freeing for you too. It clears the emotional tension that has been lingering between you for so long. The air feels lighter because the guessing is finally over, and this moment is powerful for a deeper reason. It's not only about love or connection, it's about rebuilding trust in yourself. Once this happens, you will fully understand that your intuition is real, your emotional awareness is accurate, your inner voice deserves to be listened to. You were never too sensitive, you were never overdramatic, you were never foolish for sensing something beneath the surface. You simply felt the truth before it had language. Everything you've been going through lately has prepared you for this. The emotional growth, the detachment, the moments where you chose yourself instead of chasing answers, the strength you built while sitting with uncertainty. None of that was pointless. You needed to become steady within yourself so that when the truth arrived, it wouldn't shake you. And now you are steady. After the confession, remember this. Honesty doesn't automatically create a fairy tale beginning. What it truly brings is clarity. It replaces confusion with understanding. It replaces guessing with truth, and it returns power to you. Now you get to choose what happens next. Not from longing, not from fear of losing them, but from awareness and self-respect. That's real growth. If hearing this makes you emotional, that's a sign something resonates. If you feel calm instead of anxious, that shows you're aligned with yourself. If this message feels familiar, almost personal, that's your intuition recognizing its moment. You didn't imagine the connection. You didn't misunderstand the energy. You didn't wait for nothing. Someone is genuinely coming forward with words that match what you've already felt deep inside. As this approaches, don't rush it. Don't try to force a conversation, and don't start doubting yourself now. Let the truth arrive naturally. When it does, you'll realize something important. Your intuition didn't just sense love, it sensed the timing too. And that time has finally come. When the confession is spoken and everything is out in the open, you may notice a shift before your mind even processes it. Your shoulders soften. Your breathing feels deeper. The endless mental replay of "what if" begins to quiet down. Clarity has a calming effect. For so long, your energy was tied up in wondering and waiting. Even when you told yourself you were fine, a part of you was still holding tension. Now that tension releases. You might look back at past moments and suddenly understand them differently. Small gestures that once confused you now make sense. Words that felt incomplete now connect. Even the silence feels explained. This doesn't pull you backward. It actually frees you from the past. You're no longer carrying unspoken questions. From here, you enter a space of choice. And choice feels different when it comes from clarity rather than emotional hunger. You're not chasing validation anymore. You're grounded. You may feel compassion for them, recognizing how fear kept them quiet. At the same time, you'll feel compassion for yourself. You'll see how patient you were, how brave it was to trust your inner voice when there was no external confirmation, how much stronger you've become. This balance is important. It keeps you from losing yourself in their emotions. It reminds you that your needs matter too. Whatever happens next in this connection, it will now be built on honesty instead of assumption. And that shift alone is powerful. You'll probably notice you don't feel the urge to analyze every text or overthink every pause anymore. Your nervous system begins to relax because truth creates stability. Even if there are still unknowns ahead, they won't feel threatening. You now know you can handle uncertainty. You know you don't need to force outcomes to feel secure. This experience deepens your relationship with yourself. You begin trusting your intuition not as something mystical or dramatic, but as a steady internal guide that has proven itself reliable. That confidence spreads into other parts of your life. You hesitate less when something feels off. You move forward with more self-trust. You understand that patience isn't weakness, that silence doesn't always mean absence, that truth unfolds in its own rhythm. As you move forward, remember, you don't owe anyone a rushed decision. You're allowed to take your time. You're allowed to feel everything fully. You're allowed to choose what aligns with your peace. This chapter isn't about proving anything. It's about honoring what you know and allowing your life to unfold with honesty and self-respect. You're no longer waiting in confusion. You're standing in awareness. And that changes everything. As this awareness settles deeper, another quiet transformation begins. You slowly realize you're no longer operating from fear of loss or fear of being misunderstood. You're moving from a place of inner connection. Your emotions feel steadier. Your thoughts feel clearer. You start to see that this whole experience wasn't meant to rush you toward an outcome. It was meant to slow you down enough to truly see yourself. The waiting, the sensing, the hope, the doubt. All of it shaped you into someone who can now hold truth without collapsing under it. You may notice conversations feel lighter, your reactions calmer. Uncertainty doesn't trigger you the way it once did. That's because your inner world has found balance. You don't need constant reassurance anymore. You've learned how to reassure yourself. You don't feel desperate for clarity because clarity already exists within you. If this connection continues, it will unfold without the pressure that once surrounded it. And if it moves in a different direction, you'll meet that reality with grace instead of resistance. Either way, you are no longer in the dark. You are awake, aware, and grounded in yourself. And that is the real transformation. There is real power in reaching a place where you genuinely know you'll be okay no matter what happens. That certainty shifts the way you enter every conversation and every connection. You're no longer interacting from fear of loss or desperation for an outcome. You're simply present. You may notice that your mind doesn't wander back to unanswered questions as often. Instead of replaying old scenarios, you start enjoying what's right in front of you. Your focus returns to your own life, your ambitions, your creativity, and your purpose. It's not that the connection stops mattering, it's that it no longer defines your sense of self. You are rooted in who you are first, and from that grounded place, any relationship that exists in your life has space to breathe in a healthy way. With time, you begin to see how much this experience sharpened your emotional awareness. It taught you how to listen beyond words and pay attention to subtle shifts in energy. It showed you how to stay open-hearted without abandoning yourself in the process. Those lessons don't disappear once the moment passes. They shape the way you love, the way you communicate, and the way you guard your peace. You become more mindful about where your energy goes, not because you're afraid, but because you respect yourself. From this balanced space, whatever is meant to grow will grow naturally. There's no need to force clarity or chase reassurance. You're no longer scanning for signs. You're living in alignment with what you already understand. This is what emotional maturity truly looks like. It's not dramatic endings or perfect beginnings. It's quiet confidence. It's inner stability. It's trusting that what's true will always rise to the surface, and what belongs in your life will never require you to lose yourself to keep it. As you continue forward with this clarity, your relationship with time begins to change. You stop feeling rushed by invisible timelines or expectations that were never clearly yours to carry. You feel present where you are. A calm confidence follows you. It's not loud or attention-seeking. It shows up in your posture, your tone, and the way you move through the world. You trust that what needs to be said will be said. What needs to unfold will unfold. You don't feel the need to push it. That trust allows you to finally rest emotionally. And you may not have realized how long you've needed that rest. You also start to understand that the connection you sensed was never meant to consume you. It was meant to wake you up. It revealed how deeply you can feel, how perceptive you are, and how strong your inner awareness truly is. You stop doubting your depth, you begin honoring it. You recognize that being sensitive isn't weakness. Intuition isn't fantasy. They are forms of intelligence. They guided you through uncertainty and led you safely to truth. Now, mixed signals and inconsistency don't pull you into confusion the way they once did. Clarity acts as a filter. You see people more honestly, including what they are emotionally capable of offering. This doesn't make you cold. It makes you real. You allow others to show you who they are without trying to fill in missing pieces for them. Self-respect becomes your foundation. From there, your choices become cleaner. You no longer stay in situations hoping they will transform into something they're not. You choose what feels steady, mutual, and emotionally authentic. And if something no longer meets you where you stand, you release it without bitterness. That kind of maturity brings peace that stays with you even when life feels uncertain. You trust yourself to navigate whatever comes next. You don't chase validation. You don't over-explain your worth. Your presence carries enough truth on its own. As life continues moving around you, you remain centered and aware. That's the quiet strength this journey has given you. The ability to move without fear, to listen without doubt, and to live without ignoring the wisdom that has always been inside you. As this new phase continues, the growth you've experienced doesn't fade. It deepens. Even in ordinary moments, you respond differently. Emotional storms don't pull you in as easily. When challenges appear, you meet them with steadiness instead of panic. Something inside you has settled. The constant wondering and guessing no longer control your inner world. You trust yourself enough to pause before reacting, to listen before speaking, to feel without being overwhelmed by what you feel. Your boundaries become clearer, even without long explanations. You naturally step away from what drains you and move toward what restores you. You don't feel guilty for choosing peace over chaos or for choosing yourself over situations that require you to shrink. This shift didn't come from closing your heart. It came from understanding its value. You still care deeply, you still feel strongly, but you're no longer willing to lose yourself in emotional imbalance. Over time, you see that this connection taught you patience in a new way, not passive waiting, but active growth. You were learning how to stand firm within yourself while allowing life to reveal truth at its own pace. You realize now that waiting was never about another person. It was about becoming ready to receive clarity without fear. You were strengthening your ability to hold truth without collapsing under it. This lesson changes how you approach everything, from relationships to personal goals. You stop forcing outcomes. You begin respecting timing. You understand that what arrives too early may not be sustained, and what arrives too late may no longer align. Timing isn't punishment, it isn't reward, it's alignment. When you respect that, life feels lighter. You release the need to control every detail and allow things to unfold naturally. You also become more emotionally honest with yourself. You let yourself feel joy without questioning it. You allow sadness without judging it. You don't hide emotions to appear strong, and you don't amplify them to be understood. You simply let them move through you. This balance makes you more present. You engage in conversations fully. You listen closely. You speak with sincerity. You're no longer searching for hidden meanings in every word. You take actions at face value, trusting that consistency over time reveals what is real. There's peace in that simplicity, and you may notice that people respond to you differently now. Some feel calmer in your presence. Some feel more open. Others may feel slightly uncomfortable because your grounded energy reflects truths they may not yet be ready to face within themselves. But you don't shrink to make others comfortable anymore. You stand steady in who you are, and that steadiness is the true gift of this journey. You don't take it personally anymore. You understand that everyone is walking their own path, learning their own lessons, and moving at a pace that makes sense for them. You no longer feel obligated to fix anyone, rescue anyone, or carry their emotional weight. You offer support when it's welcome, and you create space when it's necessary. This kind of emotional independence doesn't push people away. It actually improves your relationships. The connections that remain feel balanced, honest, and built on respect. You stop trying to force depth where it doesn't exist, and instead invest your energy where it flows naturally. As you continue living from this place, you start to notice that your energy feels different. It's calmer, more grounded, less reactive. You don't feel pulled in every direction by other people's moods or mixed signals. Instead, you observe, you listen, you respond with intention. There's a quiet shift that happens when you stop seeking validation outside of yourself. You no longer need constant reassurance that you're valued or chosen. You already know your worth. That knowledge changes how you carry yourself. You speak more clearly. You hesitate less when something doesn't feel right. You don't over-explain your boundaries because you trust they deserve to exist. You also begin to realize that not every connection is meant to last forever. Some people enter your life to wake you up, to mirror something back to you, or to help you grow. When you understand that, you stop seeing endings as failures. You see them as completions, and completions make space for something more aligned. This doesn't mean you become detached or indifferent. It means you become conscious. You choose relationships that feel reciprocal. You notice when effort is mutual and when it's one-sided. And instead of trying harder to earn love, you lean back and allow people to show you who they are. There's a big difference between wanting someone and needing someone. When you operate from need, fear drives your decisions. When you operate from wholeness, choice drives them. You can want someone deeply and still be okay if things don't work out. That's emotional strength. You may also find that your tolerance for emotional chaos decreases. Drama that once felt intense and exciting now feels draining. You crave steadiness. You appreciate consistency. You're drawn to people who communicate openly rather than leaving you guessing. And because you've learned to sit with your own emotions, you don't run from difficult conversations anymore. You can express what you feel without turning it into blame. You can hear someone else's truth without collapsing into insecurity. That creates space for real intimacy. Another powerful shift is how you relate to uncertainty. Before, uncertainty might have felt threatening, like something was slipping away. Now, you see it as part of life. Not everything needs immediate definition. Not every moment requires a final answer. You're comfortable letting things unfold. This comfort doesn't come from indifference. It comes from trust. Trust that what is meant for you will stay. Trust that what leaves was not aligned long-term. Trust that you are capable of handling both. As this trust deepens, your world becomes simpler. You stop overanalyzing small details. You stop reading into every pause or delayed message. You give people space to be human without assuming the worst. At the same time, you don't ignore patterns that consistently feel off. That balance is maturity. You begin to notice how much lighter life feels when you're not trying to control everything. You focus more on your own growth, your passions, your goals. You invest in yourself. And ironically, that's when connections tend to become healthier, because you're no longer approaching them from emptiness. There's also a deeper compassion that grows within you, not just for others, but for your past self. You understand why you once reacted the way you did. You forgive yourself for moments of doubt or insecurity. You see that you were learning, you were evolving, and that self-compassion makes you stronger, not weaker. It allows you to move forward without carrying shame. Over time, you realize that the most important relationship you've strengthened is the one with yourself. You trust your instincts, you respect your feelings, you honor your limits, you don't abandon yourself to keep someone else comfortable. From that foundation, everything changes. You can love without losing yourself. You can care without clinging. You can walk away without bitterness. You can stay without fear. And perhaps the most powerful part of all is this: you no longer measure your life by who chooses you. You measure it by how aligned you feel within yourself. When you live from that place, connection becomes a beautiful addition to your life, not the center of your identity. You share your world with someone, but you don't hand it over. That is what true emotional independence looks like. Not isolation, not walls, but openness with boundaries, depth with stability, love with self-respect. And once you experience that, you don't want to go back to anything less. You also begin to see silence differently. It doesn't feel like rejection anymore. It feels like room to think, to breathe, to reconnect with yourself. Quiet moments don't scare you now because you trust what happens within them. You can sit alone with your thoughts without needing constant distraction. That comfort in your own presence becomes one of your greatest strengths. It allows you to enter relationships feeling whole rather than searching for completion. As you move forward, you realize this experience reshaped how you define love. Love is no longer about intensity or emotional highs. It's about safety. It's about clarity. It's about two people showing up honestly without fear of being dismissed. That understanding helps you recognize healthier connections when they come into your life. You become more patient when something begins and more peaceful when something ends. You don't cling to uncertainty and you don't resist closure. You appreciate each chapter for what it taught you instead of measuring it by how long it lasted. That shift brings freedom. You feel lighter, not because you care less, but because you're no longer carrying emotions that were never yours to hold. With time, you may look back and realize how much you've changed. The version of you who once overanalyzed everything now trusts deeply. The version who waited anxiously now moves calmly. The version who doubted their inner voice now respects it. This growth isn't loud, but it's real. It shows in your choices. You choose peace instead of drama, clarity instead of confusion, honesty instead of avoidance. You don't need applause for this transformation. You feel it internally, in your decisions, in your posture, in your thoughts. From this place, you stay open to connection without depending on it. You welcome honesty, but you don't chase it. You allow yourself to feel deeply, but you don't let emotions overpower your sense of self. You understand now that real connection never asks you to silence your intuition or ignore your needs. It respects your boundaries and develops over time. This awareness becomes your quiet guide. You move forward not because you know exactly how everything will unfold, but because you trust yourself to handle whatever does. As you continue on this path, something even deeper settles inside you. Your sense of self no longer shifts based on how others respond. You don't search for reassurance in someone's tone, behavior, or timing. You find reassurance within your own understanding. Even when situations feel unclear, you remain steady. You know that your worth and direction are not determined by temporary uncertainty. You still care, you still feel, but you no longer attach your peace to outcomes you can't control. There's a quiet confidence in knowing that whatever happens, you'll be able to hold yourself through it. That creates a deep inner safety. You trust yourself to walk away when something no longer aligns, and you trust yourself to stay present when something feels real and mutual. Because of this, your emotional reactions soften, not because you're detached, but because you're no longer reacting from old wounds. When something hurts, you acknowledge it without letting it define you. When something brings joy, you embrace it without clinging. You are engaged with life, but you are no longer lost inside it. And that balance is the true strength you've gained.